The silence inside the alien warship was deafening. Its once mighty engines had gone cold. Fires still burned in parts of the ship, but there was no one left to stop them. The crew was gone, captured, or worse. General Valari, of the Zalari Empire, stood tall in the middle of the wreckage. Her hands were bound behind her back. Her silver skin was bruised. Her sharp black eyes, once filled with pride, now watched the enemy ship that hovered beside hers, a human battleship, the monsters of her people's nightmares. They called them the flesh-eaters, beasts in human skin, creatures who didn't just kill their enemies, they devoured them. As she was dragged across the docking bridge into the human ship, she kept her head high. She would not show fear, even though her heart pounded like a war drum. The corridor was cold, too bright, too clean. The humans wore black armor. Helmets covered their faces. Not one of them spoke to her. They locked her inside a small room. It wasn't a cell, but it felt like a cage. A soft bed sat in the corner, a chair and table. A strange light glowed in the ceiling. Valari sat on the floor, back straight, eyes sharp. She waited for them to come, to tear into her flesh, to end her with fire and hunger. But no one came. Hours passed. Then the door opened. A man stepped in. He wasn't wearing armor, just a simple dark blue uniform. His eyes were blue. His hair was brown and short. He carried a tray with food. General Valera's breath caught in her throat. She stood up fast, ready to fight. But he didn't attack. Instead, he placed the tray on the table. She stared at him, unsure. The man gave her a small nod. "I'm Captain Daniel Reese," he said. His voice was calm, quiet. "I brought you dinner." Valari didn't answer. She watched his hands, waited for a knife, a weapon, a trick. But nothing came. Daniel turned to leave, then paused. "You look cold," he said. "I'll bring you something warm." She narrowed her eyes. Her people believed humans liked their meals hot. Warm flesh, cooked hearts. Was this it? Was this how it started? When he left the room, her body tensed. She looked at the tray, a bowl of soup, a piece of soft bread, water, poison, or part of the ritual. Her stomach growled, but she didn't touch it. Minutes later, the door opened again. Captain Reese returned, but he didn't bring fire, or knives, or anything sharp. He brought a blanket, soft, thick, warm. He stepped close and placed it on the bed. "I know you don't trust us," he said, "but no one here will harm you." Valari didn't speak. He looked into her eyes, not with anger, not with hate, but sadness. Then he left. Silence returned. Valari sat on the bed, confused. Her fingers touched the edge of the blanket. It was warm. It smelled clean, safe. She looked at the food again. Was this some game? A trick before death? Or ... Did they not plan to eat her? That night, she didn't sleep. Her mind raced. Her chest ached with confusion when the lights dimmed. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. It reminded her of childhood, of safety, of things she had forgotten. Her people had told her humans were beasts, but this one looked at her like she was more than an enemy. She thought of his voice, calm, gentle. His eyes had no hunger in them, only sorrow. She looked at the food tray again. She had not been tortured, not beaten, not eaten, not yet. Valari pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why hasn't he eaten me yet?" The second morning on the human ship came quietly. General Valari hadn't touched the food, but the blanket stayed wrapped around her like armor. It made no sense. These humans were dangerous, ruthless, feared across the stars. Yet the only one. She had spoken to Captain Daniel. Reese had brought her comfort, not chains. The door opened again. Daniel stepped in with another tray. This time, the food was warm. A small cup of something that smelled sweet. Bread, fruit. Valari didn't move, Daniel placed the tray down, then sat across from her without asking. She watched him carefully. He smiled. It was the strangest thing she had ever seen, a human smiling. He didn't bare his teeth like a threat. He smiled like it meant something gentle. Still not eating? He asked. Valari narrowed her eyes. Are you waiting for me to weaken first, so it's easier? Daniel raised an eyebrow. Easier to what? To eat me, she said coldly. He blinked. Then, ... He laughed, not a cruel laugh. Not a loud one. A small, surprised chuckle. You really believe that, don't you? Valari stood. Her body was tense. Your kind is known for it. The Zelari Empire has lost many to your hunger. Daniel shook his head. No, you've been lied to. She stepped closer, her voice sharper. You deny it. He looked up at her, calm/sad again. I've seen what war does. I've seen humans at their worst. But we don't eat people. Not like that. Valari stared at him, confused. Her voice softened. Then why do your enemies vanish? Daniel's gaze didn't break, because war is cruel. And sometimes, we do terrible things. But not because we're monsters. He stood and picked up the tray. I'll come back later, he said, then paused at the door. Do you want to? See something? He asked. VLAR? I didn't answer. He took a small device from his pocket and placed it on the table. When you're ready, press play. He left. The door closed. She waited a long time. Then she pressed the button. A video appeared in the air. It showed oceans, skies, tall green trees, and golden sunsets. Laughter. Children running on a beach. Music that felt ... alive. VALA. R.I. leaned forward. Her lips parted slightly. This ... was Earth. No fire, no blood, no devouring monsters, just life and love. She played the video again that night. Daniel returned. This time she was sitting in the chair, and the food tray was empty. He smiled. Again. She didn't smile back, but her voice was softer. What was that place in the video? Home, he said. It's beautiful, she admitted quietly. He sat down, looked at her without fear. You have beauty in your stars too, don't you? She hesitated. We did, before the war. He nodded. I used to think beauty didn't matter, she said. Only power. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then said, sometimes, power is knowing when not to fight. That night, after he left, Valari sat in silence, the blankets still around her, the soft music from the device still playing. She didn't understand this man. He was a soldier, a warrior, but he smiled like peace lived inside him. For the first time, she wondered if her people had been wrong. She thought of his voice, the way he looked at her like she wasn't just an enemy. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. She whispered into the quiet. He smiled at me like I was something worth saving. The ship drifted through the silence of space. Outside, stars blinked in endless black. Inside, General Valari stood near the small window in her room. Her arms were crossed. Her thoughts were loud. The video from Earth played quietly in the background. The same music, the same soft voices. She watched as humans laughed together on beaches. She still couldn't understand it. How a species feared across the galaxy could create something so ... warm. Her door opened again. Captain. Daniel Reese entered. No food tray this time. Just a datapad in one hand and a light in the other. Evening, he said, like they had done this 1,000 times. Valari turned. What now? I thought we could talk. Maybe trade stories. She frowned. Why? He stepped closer. Not too close. Because talking is better than war. Valari raised an eyebrow. Your kind started this war. Daniel shook his head. No, fear did. He placed the datapad on the table. I brought you something else. Something from my culture. He tapped the screen. A new video played. It wasn't Earth this time. It was space. A small ship. 2 humans drifting in zero gravity, laughing as soft music played. Their hands reached for each other. Their fingers touched. Valari tilted her head. "What is this?" Daniel looked into her eyes. "Love," he said simply. Valari scoffed. "A trick." "No," Daniel said softly. "It's what we fight for. Not land, not control, just moments like that." She didn't reply. The lights flickered. A low hum echoed through the walls. He looked up. Power fluctuation. It'll pass. But it didn't suddenly. The lights went dark. Total silence. Valari tensed. "What is this?" Daniel held up a hand. "Just a blackout. The engines will restart soon. You're safe." She could barely see him. Just a shadow in the dim blue glow from the datapad. VALAR. I took a step back, then another, but Daniel didn't move. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. She hesitated. "I don't understand you," she said quietly. "You're not supposed to," he replied. "You were raised to fear me." Silence stretched between them. Then, through the dark, his voice came again. "Can I show you something?" She didn't answer. He reached out his hand. She could barely see it, but it was open. Waiting slowly, very slowly. She stepped forward. Her fingers brushed his warmth. Not fire, not pain, just warmth. He didn't grab her, didn't pull her in. He just held her hand, gently. Her heart pounded. "This is what humans do," he whispered. "We touch, we connect." She looked down at their hands. Her voice trembled. "Where I come from, touch is weakness." He smiled, though she couldn't see it. She could feel it. "Then maybe your people never learned what strength really is." Her chest tightened. Something strange filled her throat. She didn't know the word, but it wasn't fear. Not anymore. The lights flickered back on bright white, filled the room. They didn't move, still holding hands. Valari looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she didn't see a monster. She saw a man, a human, someone who had reached through fear with nothing but kindness. She pulled her hand back, slowly, but the warmth stayed. Daniel turned to leave. Before he stepped out, she spoke again. "Would you eat me now?" He paused, turned back, stepped close. His voice was low. "Not in the way you fear." Her breath caught, and then he was gone, leaving her standing in the light, her heart full of questions. She touched her fingers to her chest and whispered, "Then why do I want him to?" Valari sat by the small window, watching the stars slide past. For days now, she hadn't asked for food, but she always found it waiting, warm, fresh, human, and for the first time, she finished every bite. Something inside her had changed. Captain Daniel Reese had stopped being just a guard. He had become something else. He came to speak with her daily. He brought stories, not of war, but of Earth, of his mother's garden, of the smell of rain, of the way music sounds when you're in love. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood the feeling. Every time he smiled at her, she felt it again. Warmth, dangerous warmth. One evening, Daniel entered, carrying a small round device. "It's called a haloorb," he said. He pressed a button. The room shimmered. Suddenly they were standing in the middle of an earth forest. Trees rose. Above them, birds chirped. The wind whispered through golden leaves. Valari turned in awe. "It feels real," she said. Daniel smiled. "It's my favorite place. I thought you might like to see it." She took a step forward, then stopped. "I don't understand you," she said again. Daniel turned to her. "Then let me help you." Their eyes met. Her voice dropped. "Why do you keep showing me beauty?" "Because you deserve to see it," he said. She stared at him, her chest tight, her throat dry. He stepped closer, close enough to feel. "I was your prisoner," she whispered. "You still are," he said softly, "but not in chains." Her eyes searched his. Then the moment shattered. An alarm rang out across the ship. Daniel turned, face tense. "Stay here." He ran out. The door locked behind him. Valari stood frozen. The holoforest faded. She was alone again. Minutes later, the door burst open. A different human soldier entered. Rough, cold eyes. He looked at her with disgust. "You need to come with me," he barked. Valari stiffened. "Where is Daniel?" "Captain Reese has been removed from duty." Her heart stopped. Removed. She didn't resist. But her mind raced. They dragged her through unfamiliar corridors, past soldiers who whispered and stared. They placed her in a new room, smaller, colder, gray walls. No blanket, no music. She waited. Hours passed. Then the door opened again. It was him, Daniel. His face was bruised, his uniform torn. Valari stood fast. "What happened?" He looked at her, pain in his eyes. "They found out I was getting too close." She stepped toward him. "Why did you come back?" He smiled faintly. "Because I couldn't stay away." Her voice trembled. "They will punish you, I know. Then why risk it?" He took a slow step closer. "Because something is happening between us, and I won't pretend it isn't real." She stared at him, her breath shallow. "No one has ever spoken to me like this," she whispered. Daniel touched her hand. "No armor, no gloves, just skin. I don't see an enemy anymore," he said. "I see a soul trying to be free." Tears rose in her eyes. She didn't know why. No Zalari general had ever cried, but she wasn't just a general anymore. Not around him. Daniel stepped closer. Their hands still joined. "I don't know what will happen tomorrow," he said, "but I know what I feel now." She looked up at him, and then, for the first time, she kissed him. Not out of duty, not out of fear, but because her heart demanded it. The kiss was slow, soft, real. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I was told humans eat their enemies." Daniel smiled. "You were misinformed." She touched his chest. Her voice was almost silent. "Then let me stay your prisoner. Just a little longer." He pulled her into his arms and said, "You've never been my prisoner, Valari. You've always been the enemy of my heart." Silence had a weight in space. It pressed on the soul like gravity, cold, heavy, endless. Inside a hidden corridor of the human battleship. Valari sat with her back against the wall. Her fingers were still warm from his touch. Captain Daniel Reese paced in front of her, whispering into a stolen comm unit. "They're pulling all high-priority prisoners off the fleet," he said. "Your people are demanding your return." Valera's eyes narrowed. "To execute me? Worse," Daniel muttered. "They want to use you. Turn you into a symbol. A puppet for propaganda. And if you refuse, they'll erase you." Her stomach turned. The Zalari High Command had no mercy for traitors. She had gone too far, felt too much, loved a human, and now, they knew. She stood slowly. "Then we must run." Daniel looked at her, his jaw clenched. "They've blocked every path. There's only one way out." "What is it?" she asked. He hesitated. "A rogue ship. No weapons, no crew, just us." Valari took a step closer. His eyes softened. "I'd go with you," he said. "Anywhere." Her breath caught. She believed him. But the moment was broken by a sharp beep from the comm. A new voice. Deep, cold. "General Valari, this is Commander Threx of the Zalari flagship. Surrender yourself now, or we will fire on the human ship within the hour." The body went still. Daniel turned off the comm. "They're bluffing," he said. She shook her head. "They never bluff." He stepped forward, grabbed her hand. "Then we fight." She looked into his eyes. Her heart pulled in two directions. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. But she knew her people. If she didn't return, millions would die. "They'll kill innocents," she whispered. Daniel's voice cracked. "And they'll kill you." She touched his face. Then let me make the choice. He shook his head. I can't let them take you. It's not your choice, she said softly. He grabbed her shoulders. Valari, don't do this. Tears welled in her eyes. She had never cried for herself, but she cried for him. For what they could have had. For what the war would steal. She leaned in, kissed him deeply, slowly then pulled away. I love you, she said. That's why I have to go. Daniel fell silent. He stepped back, numb, empty. She turned and walked away. Every step was heavy. Every breath was a wound as she entered the docking bay. Zalari soldiers waited, cold unblinking. No words were exchanged. They took her without resistance, back on the human ship. Daniel stood alone in the room where they first touched hands. He picked up the data pad she had left behind, the same one that played Earth's music. He pressed play. Then, with a shaking voice, he began to record. If you ever hear this, Valari, I want you to know I would have followed you anywhere, even into fire, even into silence. His voice cracked. But if you chose to save them, then maybe this war still has hope. Across space, inside her transport, Valari held a hidden earpiece close to her ear. She listened to his message, again and again, each word carved deeper into her heart. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. She looked out at the stars and whispered, You gave me something no empire ever could, a reason to fight for peace? The Zalari flagship moved like a shadow through space, silent, ruthless, beautiful, in a cold, cruel way. Inside its command deck, General Valari stood before her old throne. She had returned not as a hero, but as a warning. Chains wrapped her wrists. Guards surrounded her. Her face was cold, unreadable. But inside, she was fire. Across the stars, Earth trembled. Zalari warships gathered along the borders, a full invasion. Millions of lives at risk, VLAR. I watched her people with empty eyes. The High Command spoke of strength, of vengeance, of wiping out the humans for corrupting her. But they didn't know. They couldn't see it. She wasn't broken. She was reborn, in the dead of night. Inside her cell, she activated a small device, hidden in her uniform. A gift from Daniel. A signal, across the galaxy. On a remote human base, a red light blinked. Daniel Reese's heart jumped. She's alive, he whispered. And then, without orders, without permission, he gathered his old team. 5 rogue soldiers, 1 stolen stealth ship, a mission fueled not by orders, but by love. Back on the flagship, Valari moved through silent halls. Her guards had been, persuaded, old loyalties, quiet favors, promises, of a better future. She reached the command tower and input the override codes. Codes only a high general would know. One by one, she shut down the engines of the war fleet, silently, perfectly. But before she could finish, alarms exploded. They had found her. Soldiers rushed in, weapons drawn. The High Commander himself stood at the door. You chose the humans over your own people, he growled. No, Valari said. I chose peace. He raised his weapon. She didn't flinch. Then a blast tore through the ceiling. Smoke, sparks, chaos. From above, ropes dropped, and a familiar voice shouted through the fire. Come with me if you're tired of being used. Daniel Reese crashed through the ceiling like a thunderstorm in human form. Blaster in hand, armor scratched and burned, heart on fire. He landed beside Valari, grabbed her hand, and pulled her close. She didn't hesitate, not for a second. They ran through the halls, through gunfire, through the storm, hand in hand. They reached the edge of the ship, where Daniel's team waited. The stolen vessel hovered, shields flickering. Daniel turned to Valari. Are you ready to burn it all down? She looked back at the ship that had raised her, the empire that had controlled her. Then she looked into his eyes and smiled. I already did. They jumped aboard, As the ship escaped, explosions lit the void behind them. The Zellery fleet was disabled. The invasion stopped, and in the center of the stars, love had started a war of its own. One not fought with fear, but with fire. On the edge of neutral space, Valari stood beside Daniel in the cockpit. Her face was tired, her eyes steady. She watched the stars slide past, then turned to him. "You came for me?" she whispered. He stepped close. "I always will." She touched his chest. "They will never stop hunting us." He kissed her forehead. "Then let them come." The stars looked softer here. The war was behind them. No more alarms, no more orders, no more cages, just quiet, and a little cottage on the edge of an Earth colony moon, where the sky always glowed orange, and the wind smelled like trees. Valari stood barefoot on the wooden floor, wearing a simple human robe. Her silver skin caught the firelight as she stirred. Something warm in a small pot. Soup, she had once believed. Humans would devour her. Now she was learning how to cook like one. Daniel walked in from the back garden, dirt on his hands, a grin on his face. "You've got herbs in your hair," she said. He laughed and stepped closer. "Then take them out for me." She reached up and brushed his hair gently, then paused. "You never stopped fighting for me," she said quietly. He looked at her. "You were the only thing worth fighting for." She turned back to the pot. "I never imagined I'd be here, cooking, breathing, free." Daniel leaned in beside her. "You've earned this. We both have." She placed 2 bowls on the table. They sat. A quiet moment passed. The fire cracked in the corner. Valari tasted the soup. Her eyes widened. "It's not terrible," she said with a small smile. Daniel smirked. "You're learning." Then he stood and walked toward the storage cabinet. "I have one more thing for you," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Another Earth invention." "Something like that." He pulled out a small covered plate and set it in front of her. "Dessert." She tilted her head. "Sweet, but not necessary." Daniel leaned down. His voice dropped to a whisper beside her ear. "Oh, I wasn't talking about the food." Valari turned slowly. His lips were close, his eyes steady, and something deep inside her fluttered. "You humans," she murmured. "Always hungry." He smiled. "Only for you." He kissed her, long, slow. No war, no fear, just lips against lips. 2 hearts, finding a rhythm that needed no translator. When they parted, she touched his chest. "I thought you would eat me," she said with a playful smirk. Daniel pulled her gently into his lap. She laughed softly, and for the first time, it sounded like home. He kissed her neck, whispered against her skin. "Not in the way you feared." She leaned into him, her voice soft. "Then I hope you stay hungry forever." The fire burned low. The soup went cold. But neither of them noticed. They had everything they needed, each other, a stolen peace, and a love that had rewritten the stars. She expected him to be a monster, a killer, a flashita, but he gave her warmth, he gave her music, he gave her love, and in return, she gave him something no human had ever tasted before, her heart.